Okay. We start out today reviewing some music theory. Now, again, just because we have some new people here, who here does not understand or is not able to read music? Okay, good. So it's not a big deal. I'm not going to be teaching you music theory, but there are certain elements we all need to go through just to have a basic understanding of how this all works. And so this is from the last week. Western musical notation is written on what they call a staff with 5 lines. And this is called the clef, in this case the G clef, in this case the F clef, because there's a G on that line and there's an F on that line. And then you have on this staff going up, so when you go up, and going down, the different lines and spaces representing different note values. And in our Western system of music, we have 12 notes. Like, you can't have more than 12 notes. C, C sharp, and if you think of a piano, the white key is the C, the black key just above it is the C sharp. White key is a D, D sharp, E, and then there's no black key, and you have an F. F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, and C. So there are only 12 notes that we can use in Western systems. In other systems there are more notes. In other words, the octave, the 8-note span between do, do, the 8 notes between there, called an octave, you can divide that up infinitesimally. So you could have an infinite number of microtones in between that do and the do, okay? But for our purposes, you have 12 in total. In this course, for what we're doing, really all you need to know is the basic 8 ones. And again, like we did last time, we'll do again this time. You all have seen The Sound of Music, the movie The Sound of Music, and you know the song Do a Deer, yeah. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, right? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, okay? So if you can handle that, you can handle anything we'll do in this course, and you can handle that, okay? So just to give a very basic understanding to anyone who might not understand or need a refreshing. The lines are given the letter E, G, B, D, F. So any note that falls on this line is going to be a D. Any note that falls on this line is going to be a G. The spaces are F, A, C, E. So any note that falls in this space is going to be an F. Any note that falls in this space is going to be an E. So those are the pitches. Okay, so that's how we know up and down what the pitch is. The women generally are going to be reading from this clef, the G clef, soprano and alto. Tenor and bass, men will generally sing from this clef. The reason of that is because the voices are of a different range, and so in order to try to keep everything within the space of the staff, there are no notes above and below the staff, but you want to keep it within the staff as much as possible. These better reflect the voice ranges of women and of men. So on the F, or the bass clef, the lowest line is not an E, but it's a G. The second line is not a G, but it's a B. So you see how it's been transposed down just one line. So G, B, D, F, A, and then the spaces are A, C, E, and G. So you see, very easily how that works. That gives us the up and the down. As far as the length, how long do you hold a note? We have 4 different types of notes that we're going to be basically concerned with here. The whole note, which technically speaking gives you 4 counts. Okay? The half note, which is half of 4 is 2. The quarter, a quarter of 4 is 1. And the eighth note, which is 1/2 of a beat. So an eighth note with the flag is half a beat, 1 beat, 2 beats, 4 beats. One thing that we didn't mention last week that's very important is that you can put a dot next to any one of these. So if you take a dot after the half note, a dot adds 1/2 of the note value. So if the note value is 2, 1/2 of 2 is 1, so this becomes 3. Okay, it's just something to keep in mind, and that's for the length of the notes. Okay, that's part 1 of music theory in 25 words or less. To do the scale, right below the E, that first line is a C, so C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, simplest scale. And if we can just refer to the C as a do, so that's the do, and let's just sing the scale together. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Okay, do it C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Okay? The distance between the notes is given in terms of the number of the second note from the first. So the first note of the C scale, the C or the do, to the second note, do, re, it's called a second. The distance from the first to the third, do, re, mi, so do, mi is a third. To the fourth is obviously fourth, do, re, mi, fa, do, fa. Okay? Learning these intervals is really useful. It's really, really useful. So how do you learn it? Let's sing do, fa, ready, end. Do, fa. Can you think of any piece of music? What? Can you think of a song that you know or a melody that you know? What?
Amazing Grace.
Ba, ba. What about ba, 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 ba. Yeah, you think of songs like that. Amazing Grace, the Wedding March, whatever, and you have a fourth in your mind. So if you see the notes there on the page, you automatically have that. It's a really good trick. Do, mi, do, mi. What's the song for that? Do, mi. Can you think of one? Do, po. Okay, let's go do the fifth then. Let's see that. Do, re, mi, fa, so, do, so. Sure? Dum, bum, bum. Yeah. Mary, what's the name of it? Yeah. No. No, that Mary Had a Little Lamb is different. Twinkle, twinkle, little. That's it. Okay, good. 6. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la. Do, fa. Remember the old NBC thing? Bing, bing, bing. Remember that? NBC? Bing, bing. I'm dating myself. Bing, bing, bing. That was the, like, I remember when I was a kid, and I would visit my grandfather, and he always had the Beverly Hillbillies playing in the living room and Voice of America playing in the back room. And Voice of America was, it was the Canadian, dum, dum, bum, bum, bum. The what do you call it? The Canadian national anthem. Bum, 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 bum. You used to do this stuff. Yeah. Dum, bum, bum, bum. Okay. All these little ditties that you think about, try to put them into the context of an interval, and it will be very helpful for you. But if nothing else, you can remember do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and you'll have it. Okay? So that's that. Now, just to throw a wrench in the works, the sharp, the flat, and the natural. Sharp means you take the note and raise it up half a step. So rather than do, re, mi, you'd have do. It's between the do and the re, do, so it raises it a half a step. Flat lowers it a half a step. No, so, a half a tone rather than a whole tone. Okay? And the natural, where you will see this is when a note has been changed to make it sharp. For example, remember we did tone 2 last time? And we do na 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 na. You hear the half tones there? Yeah, and that's where you'll see that, where you've had a sharper flat, and then it becomes natural again. Please.
So like all the notes, if you make a note sharp, all of them are sharp until the natural's there?
Yeah. Generally speaking, okay, yeah.
Double.
No. This is basic, please. This is basic. Okay? So that is what we went over from the first lesson for the music theory. So before we go any farther, does anybody have any questions about music theory, about reading music or anything like that? Okay? Please.
If anybody wants assistance, I can help. I volunteer.
Yeah.
For a copy.
And there's lots of resources available, and in music stores, and in on the net and everything else. So if you really want to learn music theory, it's relatively easy to do so. Okay. Good. So if there's no questions, and I'm going to ask one last time, no more questions about the music theory. If something comes up in the way and you don't understand, please raise your hand and ask. Okay. We'll move on to the structure of Vespers. Now, all of you should have received, well, you did receive, if you're on the distribution list, the order of Vespers. I forgot to get this done in Ukrainian. I'll have it done in Ukrainian and post on the website. The order of Vespers. Now, as we mentioned last time, Vespers is the evening service. The liturgical day begins at sundown. So Vespers is the evening service. It is composed of psalms and hymns, particular poetic compositions which we call stichire or tropars, okay? And then particular types of prayers like litanies, where we sing the Господи помилуй or the Lord have mercy, and obviously the priest's prayers as well. So, Vespers to many people is like voodoo. They have no idea what's going on, because Vespers has a lot of changeable parts to it. And the service itself has various characters. There's sort of 3.5 versions printed here. But this doesn't take into account a couple of other versions of Vespers that we do. So this is just sort of the relatively normal stuff, okay? Vespers is served every day of the year. It's part of the ongoing daily, weekly, annual cycle of worship. And for the most part, other than Paschal Week, Bright Week, it's going to be very similar to this, one of these 3 variations. During Paschal Week, it has a very specific structure, which is very different from this, but so do most of the other services. So, everybody have one? Okay. If we start out, small Vespers. I'm not going to talk about small Vespers, because small Vespers is only done when you have I'm the teacher, and if I don't like what the students are telling me, I can ask them to leave the class, so you just remember that.
No, don't do that.
Yes, I know. I have to drive home with her.
Put in a corner.
For small Vespers, we have the we only do small Vespers when we have a vigil service, okay? So I'm going to start at the other end and work my way backwards, okay? In Ukrainian, Sceniczna bdenia. And what this is Vespers, Matins, and first hour. Now, wrong one. Vespers, Matins, and first hour, all put together, okay? In the Russian tradition, they tend to do this, if not every Saturday, very often. If you go to the Russian Cathedral on Henry Street, every Saturday you'll have a service there, which will go, depending on how fully they do the service, anywhere from like 2.5 to 5 hours, okay, on Saturday night. Okay? If you go to Mount Athos or to monasteries that follow that tradition, they will always have a vigil on the evening before a big feast day or on Saturday evening. And on Mount Athos, a simple one will go for like 6-7 hours. So you'll start at like 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening and go till early in the morning. Okay? So that's called the vigil. And small Vespers is only done when there's a vigil. And what happens is, because of the way things are combined, at maybe 4 o'clock or so, they'll have this small Vespers, which is almost like a reader service. Do you all know what a reader service is? It's a service where no priest is present. And it has the structure of the service, but none of the priest's parts, none of the deacon's parts are done. Okay? And so it's like a reader service. You see, it's very simple. They do the opening prayers with "Come, let us worship." Psalm 103 is read. "Lord, I have cried," and "Stichire." We don't even read the psalm, just we do the psalm verses to introduce the Stichire. "Gladsome light" is read, "Prokimenon." "Vouchsafe, O Lord," Apostica, "Song of Simeon," Trisagian prayers, Tropar. And then it has here the litany, which the priest would do, obviously, the deacon, and then the dismissal. And what you would do is that happens at like 4 in the afternoon, following which you have Compline, you have your meal and Compline, okay? And then you have a little bit of a break, and then they begin the vigil, okay? In parish usage, this isn't done. So you can forget about small Vespers, okay? We're not even going to talk about it. We have daily Vespers and great Vespers, which are the only two versions of Vespers you'll find in a parish, hopefully. The daily Vespers begins with the opening prayers, "Blessed is our God," "Come, let us worship." Psalm 103 is read, not sung. Great Litany, Kathisma. That word Kathisma, it means psalm reading. So you will see, if you look in a liturgical book, it says, and now we're reading from the Kathisma. In our Orthodox use, the Psalter, 150 psalms, are divided into 20 different sections. Each section is called a Kathisma. Kathisma comes from the Greek word which means to sit, because when they read the Psalter, everybody was allowed to sit. So you could sit and listen to the Psalter, right? So there's a Kathisma reading. And that Kathisma reading will differ on the day of the week, the service, etc. For our purposes, when we're doing Vespers, it's usually Great Vespers, and we're doing Great Vespers, usually it's the first Kathisma, okay? Daily Vespers, if you were to do Vespers every day, that Kathisma reading would change every day. And if you want to get into that later, we can get into that. But for our purposes here, I'm not terribly worried about that. After that, "Lord, I have called," the Stichire, the entrance, if it's specified. Most often in daily Vespers, there is no entrance. You know how they open the doors and the priest comes out? No. In daily Vespers, most of the time, we don't do that. Okay? Gladsome light for daily Vespers is normally read by the pastor or the abbot or the abbess or whoever. It's normally not sung. We sing the Prokimenon. During Lent, there are Old Testament readings. How many people here have been to the Liturgy Presanctified Gifts? Liturgia Ranisha Sviatchanych Dariów. Okay? You know that there's a reading from, during most of Lent, it's the first reading from Genesis, the second reading from Proverbs. And then during Holy Week, it's the reading from Exodus and Jonah. You remember on Good Friday how you have the reading at the end of the book of Jonah? Mm-hmm. Right? Anyway, all of this fits together. So you will have during Lent readings from predominantly Genesis and Proverbs. After that, the Vouchsafe, O Lord, the Litany, let us complete our prayer to the Lord, Apostica, Song of Simeon, Trisagion, Tropars, Litany, have mercy on us, the one we normally do after the Gospel. It comes to the end of the service here, which was its original place in the liturgy, and then the dismissal. Now, what happens in most parishes is we do Great Vespers. So, Great Vespers without the vigil, okay, without the matins, begins either with the 9th hour, and actually, if you, does anybody have the old version of this book? You have the old version, okay, so I will give you pages in both versions. In the new version, the Great Vespers is on page 79, in English, 78 in Ukrainian, and then in the old version it is 78, 79. Oh, same one, okay. So, the Great Vespers begins with the reading of the 9th hour, and if it does begin with the reading of the 9th hour, after the priest blessing, blessed is our God, Blahosloven Bohdan, we immediately sing Come Let Us Worship on page 80, 81. If the 9th hour hasn't been read beforehand, we would normally do the opening prayers, reading that from Slava Tobi, Washna, Slava Tobi, all the way down to the Our Father, and read through until Psalm 103. As mentioned last week, and I'm repeating it specifically so that, you know, we all understand. In our tradition, what normally happens is, whether the vigil is served or not, Great Vespers on a Saturday night or on the eve of a feast day is treated as if it were the beginning of a vigil. So generally speaking, you would have Blessed is our God, Amen. We'd sing Come Let Us Worship and sing Psalm 103. Okay? So that's what normally would happen. Also for a vigil there's a censing, and again, that's done more often than not in, you know, Ukrainian and Russian parishes. Okay? The Great Litany, you know, we have in all of our services. And then where it says, Blessed is the man, you see it's parallel to reading of the Kathisma. Blessed is the man is, of course, the first words of Psalm 1. And if you were to read the entire psalm, it's broken up into 3 sections. If you go into the prayer book on page 89, okay, 88, 89, you see that we don't have the whole psalm there. We just have selected verses, and we only have one litany. Now this is just an aside so you know. Technically speaking, if you show up in a monastery where they're doing things fully, that first Kathisma is going to be Psalms 1 through 8. And then after Psalm 3 and after Psalm 6, there's going to be a small litany. And in the pre-service books, that's what it says. That you would read the first 3 Psalms, small litany. Second 3 Psalms, small litany. Third 3 Psalms, small litany. And then you'd sing, Lord, I Have Cried. Okay. In parish usage and in the vigil especially, this is the way it is, where we just do selected verses from Psalm 103 and then selected verses from the first Kathisma. So is everybody following so far? I'm trying to give you a fuller picture so that you can sort of know what the whole thing is like and see where all of this fits in that we do. The point is that you can follow this book fine. You have no problem in your parish. Everybody will do this. But if you go somewhere else and they're doing all this other stuff that you're not used to, you know that they're okay. They're just doing sort of the full version, okay? We have the Lord I Have Cried, the psalm verses, the Stichire, and the Great Vespers always has an entrance. You know, where the priest or the deacon comes with the kadilo, and he comes and says, Premudrist, stand aright, and we sing O Gladsome Light, Svitateke, right? Then the Prokimen, and then on feast days, there are always readings. In the ancient church, at the liturgy, there used to be a reading from the Old Testament, from the letters, and from the Gospels. In our tradition, what has happened is the Old Testament reading has been moved off to Vespers. So we do our Old Testament readings at Vespers. Usually there are 3 readings, usually they're from the Old Testament, but not always. I think that's the motto we can have for all of our liturgical life is, but not always, because there's all kinds of little variations. For example, this coming Wednesday, we have the feast of St. John the Theologian, right? So the 3 readings at Vespers on Tuesday night are from the first letter of St. John the Theologian. For the feast of St. Peter and Paul, we have the readings from the letters of St. Peter, okay? So most of the time it's Old Testament readings, but in specific cases, especially with the apostles, they are from the New Testament as well, okay? After that we have the litany, Let Us All Say, and that's something that you see in the daily Vespers. It's at the end right before the dismissal, but in the Great Vespers, in the Divine Liturgy, in the Moleben, wherever else you go, that litany is found right after, basically right after the scripture readings, right after the Gospel, or in this case the Old Testament readings, etc. Vouchsafe, O Lord, let us complete, and then in parentheses there it says litia. Now litia simply means a fervent prayer, okay? It's a procession. Litia usually involves some type of procession, some type of special prayer. The small service we have for the reposed is called litia, okay? This portion of Vespers, in the Western liturgical tradition, it's called rogation prayers. And you used to make processions around, and you'd stop here and there and have special prayers. So for the litia, we normally go to the back of the church. We do the special litia prayers there, and then we go back up to the front and continue with the Vespers. Then we have the Apostica, the Song of Simeon, the Trisagion to the Our Father, Tropars. Now, if you go in your book to page 107, 106, 107. And it's good for you for homework to take your prayer book and take this schematic and go through it so that you see where this lines up on page such and such of my prayer book. It's a useful exercise to do, okay? Here, where it says Tropars and Theotokion, whenever you do the vigil, unless it's a big feast day with its own tropar, like St. John the Theologian, or a big feast of the Lord, etc., you're going to sing Bohorodice Divo, Rejoice, O Virgin Theotokos, okay? Technically speaking, just so you know, whenever you do Vespers apart from the Matins, you should sing, okay, so let's just say tomorrow's tone 6, right? Right? Tomorrow's tone 6. So let's find tone 6, Tropar, in the prayer book. Tone 6, Tropar. What page is it on? Tone 6, Tropar. No? Яка сторінка?
374.
Oh, no. I have 368 in the new one. In the old one, let's see.
374.
374. Okay. Old one is 374.
Yeah, 376.
Okay. Yeah, old one is 374. New one is 368. Okay? So tomorrow's tone 6. We are doing Vespers, Great Vespers, but not the Vigil. Technically speaking, tonight at Vespers, after the Our Father, we should sing the Tropar of tone 6, the angelic powers, angelski sile, glory, both now and at Theotokion, having called your mother blessed, nazvavši svoju mater blahoslovenную. Okay, and I would like to draw attention to that, because it's important to know that Theotokion that we have for tone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the Bohorodichne, is sung at the end of Vespers and at the beginning of Orthros. It's not sung at the liturgy. Because they are found in the prayer books and always have been, a lot of times the cantors would sing them at the liturgy because they see Tropar Kundak Bohorodichny, they would sing Tropar Slava Kudak Inini Bohorodichny. Okay? But that's not the way it's done. This Bohorodichny for tones 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is sung at the end of Vespers, if it's not a great feast day, and then at the beginning of Orthos after God is the Lord. Okay, so that's an important thing to remember there. However, for our purposes, for Great Vespers, as mentioned before, generally we treat it like a vigil. So generally people will just sing the Bohorodice Divo, the Rejoice Virgin Theotokos, at the end of Vespers. If it's a big feast day, you might sing it twice and then the Tropar of the feast once. If it's one of the 12 great feast days of the Lord, of the Mother of God, well, the Lord, you would only sing the Tropar of the feast then. Okay, but we'll get to that in the second half of today's session when we talk about Tropars and Kundaks. Just so that you know, for our purposes, we're just going to keep to what's in the book here and sing Rejoice, O Virgin Theotokos, unless it's a feast day, okay? And the good thing about this is that the more, because Vespers changes very much, the more parts of Vespers you can keep steady from week to week, the easier it is for everybody, okay? If you want to do the right thing, I can tell you how to do it exactly perfectly right. But keeping Vespers as a more unchangeable service in parish life is very useful. Okay, please.
I guess I wasn't paying attention, but the Theotokian then, even though it's custom to do it in church, it's not necessary to do it on Sunday morning.
Well, it's not called for on Sunday morning liturgy. It's called for at the end of Vespers and at the beginning of Orthros, yeah, and sometimes at the end of Matins too. But yeah, if you really want to get into it, how you use the Theotokians, and for the Tropars, and for the Stichire, and for the dogmatic, and for the Theotokian at the end of Apostica, it's really convoluted. It's really, you know, it's not very complicated, but it's complicated, okay? So the important thing is just to know when you need to do it. For our purposes, again, for our purposes in parish usage, whenever we sing a Theotokian at the Divine Liturgy, it's going to be either O Protection of Christians, or if it's a Feast of the Mother of God, it's going to be the Kondak to the Feast of the Mother of God. Okay? So any questions on the structure of Vespers? Okay. Okay, good. So we've done the structure of Vespers. So now that you're totally... Please.
Why do we sing Pitvoye Melis again?
That's a Ukrainian custom. It's not part of any ustav anywhere, but that's a custom that came from somewhere, I don't know where, and in some places they do it, but it's technically is not part of the Vesperal service. It's a pious hymn. Just like in Western Canada, if you go to many churches, before the liturgy, they will sing Strasi Pokori. It's not a liturgical song, it's a paraliturgical song. But the Pitvoye Melis, the Beneath Your Protection, is an ancient Christian hymn. And if you read Frederica Matthews' green book called The Gospel of Mary, she takes 3 hymns, like ancient Christian hymns to the Mother of God, and talks about it, and that's one of the hymns that she uses. It's very ancient. So like when a Protestant comes along and says, well, you guys worship the Mother of God and this wasn't part of the life of the early church, you give them Frederica Matthews' green book and you say, read this, we'll talk about it. The
Russian church, they do Podtoyu.
Yeah.
It's the same.
Yeah, same thing. It's a custom among our people. So you don't find it in the Greek tradition. You don't find it among other Orthodox churches. But we do have to say that that particular hymn is appointed as the final kondak at Lenten Vespers. When we do Lenten Vespers, they have 4 tropari at the end of Lenten Vespers that are standard every day. The last one is Beneath Your Protection. Okay, so that's the only place where it is appointed liturgically to be used. Okay? Okay, and like I say, there's these customs. There's nothing wrong with them.
And while you're in church, they sing it during the communion.
Yeah.
Just while they're
Yeah.
having communion.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay? Good. So that's the structure of Vespers, and God willing, we've been through that. Next, introduction to tones 6 and 7. How we'll be doing it is, we will be doing it first in Ukrainian, then in English. First the vesperal tones, then the liturgical tones. But before we do that, we should warm up our voices a little bit, because I've been talking and I need a break, and you haven't been talking and you need to warm up. So, please stand up, and we will just do our little vocal exercises to get our voice box and our brain in gear. So let's just do do, re, mi, fa, so, la, mi, do, re, mi, fa, so, fa, mi, re, do. Okay? Do, re, mi, fa, so, fa, do, re, mi, fa, so, fa, mi, re, do. Up and down. Okay? Do, re, mi, fa, so, fa, mi, re, do. Do, do, re, mi, fa, so, fa, mi, re, do. Do, do, re, mi, fa, so, fa, mi, re, do. Do, do, re, mi, fa, so, fa, mi, re, do. Do, do, re, mi, fa, so, fa, mi, re, do. Do, do, re, mi, fa, so, fa, mi, re, do. Do, do, re, mi, fa, so, fa, mi, re, do. Do, do, re, mi, fa, so, fa, mi, re, do. Okay, remember what we talked about last time? Your diaphragm, push it tight and support the voice like that. Try to keep your throat open, shoulders down. Don't breathe like that, but breathe from here, from there, and then hold it so that you support the voice, and then try to make the sound come out from the front, right, basically right around from where your nose is, okay? Let it come out this way and not get swallowed. Don't sing back here, but let it come out, okay? Raise your palate in back, and let's do just humming. And try, when you hum, to feel it up here. So it's going to be do, mi, so, mi, do. Ready? And. Feel the vibration? Yeah, it's very, if you're sensitive to it, it can be very ticklish, yes. Do, mi, so, mi, do. Let's just do that to work it a little bit higher. And do, mi, so, mi, do. Do, do, mi, so, mi, o, mi, do. Do, do, mi, so, mi, do. Do, do, mi, so, mi, do. Do, do, mi, so, mi, do. One more. Do, do, mi, so, mi, do. Okay, good. So have a seat. And we will begin. So pull out tone 6, Господи взиваю до тебе, in Ukrainian. Those who don't read Ukrainian can just hum along. And this is probably the best known melody, so I don't think we're going to have any trouble with this at all. Unless we have bad habits which we have to unlearn. Okay? So, we're going to start with the soprano line, which, as we talked about last time, is the melody. The tenor line will harmonize above it. Some people regard that as the melody, but it's actually a high harmony. Then we'll add the bass, and then maybe we will add the alto line. We'll see. So, the melody itself has 3 parts with a particular ending, and part 2 has a variant ending. So, where did I put it? Okay. It goes A, B, C, and a specific ending. If you end after B, you use a special variant of B, which you'll see here, of the second member. You never want to end after A. As much as possible, try never to end after A, because A and the ending are the same, more or less. Okay? So, I will sing the first line, soprano line, and then you repeat. Господи, взиваю до тебе, вислухай мене. Господи, взиваю до тебе, вислухай мене. I'll sing, you sing. Вислухай мене, Господи. Вислухай мене, Господи. Господи, взиваю до тебе, вислухай мене. Господи, взиваю до тебе, вислухай мене. Вислухай голос моління мого. Вислухай голос моління мого. Коли буду молитися до тебе. Коли буду молитися до тебе. Вислухай мене, Господи. Вислухай мене, Господи. Okay, no problem with that. Just want to draw your attention. First line, Господи взиваю. Second line, Вислухай мене, Господи. Go to the second last line where it says Be, Ve, and you see Коли буду молитися до тебе. That's that little variation. If you end after this, you use this. Instead of na, 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 you do na, na, na. So you can do the ending, okay? Just to keep that in mind. So let's try it. Tenor line. Господи, Господи, взиваю до тебе, вислухай мене. Ready, and Господи, взиваю до тебе, вислухай мене. Вислухай мене, Господи. Господи, взиваю до тебе, вислухай мене. Вислухай голос моління мого. Коли буду молитися до тебе, вислухай мене, Господи. That was the tenor line. Please.
Tell me why it's different than what we just sang.
Because the first time we sang the soprano line, this time we sang the tenor line.
I know, but why it sounded.
Well, we'll get into that. Don't worry. Okay. Give me 10 seconds and I'll show you. Give me 10 seconds and I'll show you. Okay. I would like the women to sing the soprano line, which is na 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 na. Soprano line is here, okay? That's the women. Guys, we will sing the tenor line. Na 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 na. Okay? The difference is in the soprano line, number 3 goes up a half a tone, and in the tenor line, it goes up a whole tone. So you'll just see. So ladies, the Господи взивай. Господи взивай до тебе, вислухай мене, guys. Guys right there, ladies right here, ready, and Господи взиваю до тебе, вислухай мене, вислухай мене, Господи, Господи взиваю до тебе, вислухай мене, вислухай голос моління мого. Коли буду молитися до тебе, вислухай мене, Господи. Okay, can I have 3 or 4 guys volunteer to sing bass? 1, 2, 3. Добре, okay. So, guys, you start on the same note as the sopranos. Господи, взивай до тебе, вислухай мене, Господи. Господи, взивай до тебе, вислухай мене, вислухай голос моління мого. Коли буду молитися до тебе, вислухай мене, Господи. Маєте? Paul, you got it?
Yeah.
Peter? Okay. So, guys and sopranos. Господи, tenors, men, Господи, ladies are all sopranos for, not yet. All ladies sing soprano, all basses start here, rest of the guys start up here, ready, end. Господи, взиваю до тебе, вислухай мене, вислухай мене, Господи. Господи, взиваю до тебе, вислухай мене, вислухай голос моління мого. Коли буду молитися до тебе, вислухай мене, Господи. Continue. Нехай стане. Нехай стане молитва моя, наче кадило перед тобою. Підношення рук моїх, жертва вечірня. Вислухай мене, Господи. Слава Отцю і Сину і Святому Духові, нині і повсякчас, і на віки віків. Амінь. That's that. Remember we talked about last week, that introduction melody? Okay, good. And then that you have the dogmatic there. In this case, for tone 6, we don't need the dogmatic because all of the different parts of that melody we've already sung through with the Lord I Have Cried. But this is what we'll be singing tonight in church for Vespers, because tomorrow's tone 6. Okay? Let's go to tone 6 in English and just do the exact same thing. I won't go over the music again because you know it. And just, you know, as an interesting little sidebar, remember we talked about the vigil service and how the vigil is common among especially the Ukrainians and Russians and to some degree the Romanians, whereas the Greeks, they, other than in monasteries, they never do vigils this way. In our old Chasoslove, the Horologion, the Book of the Hours, the Ukrainian ones, the Slavic ones, you will often find at the end of it, it will say, the all-night vigil, Przenośne Bdienia, and it will be given the entire text of the service with all of the stichir and everything in tone 6. So that it was a custom. Remember how we talked about how the problem with Vespers, and Vespers is nothing compared to Orthros, to Matins. Like Matins, like one priest told me, Matins is like an accordion. It could be this big, it could be this big, you know? Like there's all kinds of stuff. Most of the Matin service changes from every service, right? So if you want to do it on a parish level, and you don't have people who know how to go from one book to the second book to the third book to the fifth book, right? And what to sing when and how they get together, they actually printed out, I should have brought it, they printed out the entire vigil service, but only in tone 6. So the whole thing is tone 6. So you could do vigil every Saturday night in tone 6 from this book just like that. Okay? Which, again, according to the Typicon, is not the way we're supposed to do it, but it was very practical. You know, it was very practical. Okay? So let's go to tone 6 in English. We know the notes. Guys, sopranos, ladies, I'm sorry, basses and ladies. Lord, I have cried unto you, hear me, O Lord. Lord, I have cried unto you, hear me. Tenors, tenors, hear, Lord, I have cried unto you, hear me. Ready, end. Lord, I have cried unto you, hear me. Hear me, O Lord. Lord, I have cried unto you, hear me. Attend to the voice of my supplication when I cry unto you, hear me, O Lord. Let my prayer be set forth as incense before you, the lifting up of my hands as the evening sacrifice. Hear me, O Lord. Okay, and just again to underline what we said last week, and we're going to underline it every week, the preeminence always is given to the words. So we phrase the music according to the words, right? And secondly, let's just take that last little measure we have. Hear me, O Lord. You have a half note, 2 quarter notes, and a whole note. For our purposes, that means medium, shorter, shorter, longer. So the half note is medium, the quarter notes are shorter, and the whole notes are longer. That's what we're doing. And I am not waving my hands around for this, because we have to learn to sing together by listening to each other. It's very important, okay? For the choir, God bless choirs. There's nothing wrong with choirs at all, but we're not here to learn choir singing. We're here to learn to sing in church, and so that's going to have to be like this. And it's okay for people to wave their hands, but there's nothing wrong with that. But I want us to get into the habit of really listening to each other and trying to feel the words, because the words have to come from out of your heart to come out of your mouth. Otherwise, they're just noise, okay? So, we've done tone 6. Does anybody want to go through that again? We're going to repeat it later, so I just want to leave it. You guys sound fine. I'm not touching the alto part yet. We'll do that later after the break. Let's go back to tone 7, Vespers in Ukrainian. Господи взиваю, голос сьомий. Okay? This is a neat little melody, and it has 2 parts with an ending. Okay? So just listen. I'm going to sing through Господи взиваю by myself. It's in the key of G, and it starts a half note below the G. So if the G is do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, that's my G. I start right here, right underneath, just like when I'm in tone 4. Tone 4 and tone 7 start exactly in the same place. Oh, now I got myself screwed up. Да, Господи, взиваю до Тебе, вислухай мене. Вислухай мене, Господи. It's a bit low, I'll start higher. Господи, взиваю до Тебе, вислухай мене. Вислухай мене, Господи. Господи, взиваю до Тебе, вислухай мене. Вислухай голос моління мого. Коли буду молитися до Тебе, вислухай мене, Господи. So let's just sing that, all of us together, soprano line. Ready? End. Господи, взиваю до Тебе, вислухай мене. вислухай мене, Господи. Господи, взиваю до Тебе, вислухай мене, вислухай голос моління мого. Коли буду молитися до Тебе, вислухай мене, Господи. Very good. Let's now do the same thing we did. We'll put the guys on the tenor line. Tenor line parallels the soprano line a third above. So if we start Господи, guys, Господи, it becomes Господи, взиваю до Тебе, вислухай мене, Господи. Господи, взиваю до Тебе, вислухай мене, вислухай голос моління мого. Коли буду молитися до Тебе, вислухай мене, Господи. That's what the guys will sing. Okay? So, ladies, you have Господи. Guys, Господи. Okay? Do you all see? Do you all get it? You understand? Let's just do once with the ladies, once with the guys, then we'll put it together. So, if we're in the key of G, let's just... Oh, ladies, right there, and with me. Господи, взиваю до Тебе, вислухай мене, вислухай мене, Господи. Господи, взиваю до Тебе, вислухай мене, вислухай голос моління мого. Коли буду молитися до Тебе, вислухай мене, Господи. Guys, right there, and Господи, взиваю до Тебе, вислухай мене, вислухай мене, Господи. Господи, взиваю до Тебе, вислухай мене, вислухай голос моління мого. Коли...
Because there's a mistake. You know, in the second line, it's just a half step between G and F sharp.
You're right. Okay. Guys. Господи, взивай. Yeah. It is a... Давайте, бо я вже заблукався. Oh, yeah, that's it. Господи, взиваю до Тебе, вислух. This is the guys. Вислухай мене, Господи. Господи, взиваю до Тебе, вислухай мене. Вислухай голос моління мого. Коли буду молитися до Тебе, вислухай мене, Господи. Yes, дякую. That's a perfect example of bad habits. Okay? Добре. So, ladies. Okay. Do, mi, da, 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 ho. No, that's too low. No. Guys, ladies, guys, ladies, guys. And Господи, взиваю до Тебе, вислухай мене, вислухай мене, Господи. Господи, взиваю до Тебе, вислухай мене, вислухай голос моління мого. Коли буду молитися до Тебе, вислухай мене, Господи. Now we have to add the bass to make sense of it. Okay? Господи, взиваю до Тебе, вислухай мене, вислухай мене, Господи. Господи, взиваю до Тебе, вислухай мене, вислухай голос моління мого, коли буду молитися до Тебе, вислухай мене, Господи. Oh, Господи. This is where we end. It's on the E. Bum, bum, bum. Okay? Vyslухай,
I'll try to sing it together. We'll get it.
The harmony is a little.
Yeah. Vyslухай мене. Just guys, vyslухай мене, vyslухай мене, Господи. Right, that's where we end. О Господи, о Господи. Okay? Добре. Ladies, all ladies on the soprano line. Who are my basses? 2 basses here. Paul, Mark, Peter, okay, good. The bass is on the bass line, the rest of us on the tenor line, okay? Guys, the ladies, bass is ready, end. Господи, взиваю до Тебе, вислухай мене, вислухай мене, Господи. Господи, взиваю до Тебе, вислухай мене, вислухай голос моління мого, коли буду молитися до Тебе, вислухай мене, Господи. Далі. Нехай піднесеться молитва моя, наче кадило перед Тобою, підношення рук моїх, як жертва вечірня. Вислухай мене, Господи. Okay. Again, from the standpoint of cantoring in church, when usually we have few singers, 1, 2, 3, whatever, the default position is going to be the soprano line. Okay, and depending on the voices you have available to you, who can sing what and what ranges, and male and female, etc., add voices, as you can. But we should take the soprano as the bass, add the tenor if we can, add the bass if we can. Okay, that tends to work the best, but in each circumstance, you have to do what works best with the people that you have. Okay. Good. So that's tone 6 and tone 7. I would like to now go through. Oh, I'm sorry. We have to do the resurrectional melodies. So I'm sorry. We have to do first the Vespers melodies in English. Then we'll do the resurrectional melodies. So tone 7, Lord, I have cried. Okay, tone 7, Lord, I have cried. You're all actually very good. That's why it's moving well. So that's it. I have to keep from getting ahead of myself.